All right. Hello. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to Talking Investing. You're here with Tom and George. Hello, George.
Tom, how are you?
I'm doing good. We got a lot to go through, as always, today. Some late breaking news, a bunch of news with the Bitcoin miners. I will tell you, today was not a great day for the Bitcoin miners, but I'm going to show you why I still think we're big time on the right track. And it was a huge day for Bitcoin. New all-time high. We destroyed the old all-time high. So things are moving in the right direction. Is altcoin season started? Maybe. We had some massive move up in some altcoins. So we're going to talk about that later too. So we got a lot going on. I just want to get to Jeff right away. Thanks for the super chat, who said, when Bitcoin consolidates, miners go up. When Bitcoin flies, miners go down. When Bitcoin goes down, miners go down more. Are they a proxy or a hedge? I will give you what I think the answer to that is, starting 2 months ago going forward. I think that the Bitcoin miners are, and today I called this last night as the most likely outcome for today. The Bitcoin miners have been on a vicious run to the upside. And we very, very frequently, almost every time we've hit a new all-time high in this new cycle, the Bitcoin miners have had a bad day. And it's just simply consolidation. And I think the trend is still up from here. I'm going to show you the week to date, the month to date, the year to date. And the Bitcoin miners, even with this bad day today, are performing exceptionally well. So this is and it's deliberate, because to see Bitcoin go up, and look at your big board here, we see over here is mostly red. That is exactly the psychological warfare that they are playing against me and you and George and everybody else and Jeff, the retail investors, to give up. And so that's not financial advice. All I can tell you is I bought one thing this week, and I said I was done. This is not the first time I've done this. I said I was completely done buying, but something was presented, such an opportunity, I could not pass it up. So we'll get to that later. I did buy one thing this week. Midway One, thank you very much for the super chat. Much appreciated. And thanks for being a member as well. Let's see. I took profits on 1/5 of my IREN shares and used the money to double my share size in BitDR near $12. IREN is the best company, but BitDR might be the best. Risk reward from here. I'm now 52% IREN, 42% BitDR, 6% CIFR. And I will tell you, Midway, I appreciate that thought, because my biggest position by far now is IREN. And that's not the one I put the most money in. It's just run up so viciously that I caught that at a really good time. And I don't own any BitDR, and I do think there's a big buying opportunity in BitDR right now. So again, that's my opinion. It's not financial advice. I think what Midway did here is something I'm considering doing, the exact same thing. And when you see BitDR, really, the Bitcoin miners didn't run away from us this week. So, for those of you who think you're late or you think you missed it because Bitcoin ran up like crazy, I still think there's lots of room on the upside, and BitDR is one that I have my eye on. They're a different company. All of the companies we look at have unique business models, and BitDR is doing some special things. So I appreciate the comment.
I got a hijack.
Take it, George.
So last week I said something to Tom, and Tom kind of like scratched his head and didn't say anything, and he kind of, I know his mannerisms, okay? He said, "You're an idiot, George," without saying, "George, you're an idiot," okay?
But to be clear, I didn't officially say that.
Yeah, I know he didn't officially say it, but he looked, he gave me those eyes, he gave me the rolls, and I said, "Tom, in order for alt season to kick off, we need the volume to be at $80 billion in Bitcoin." And he's like, "George, it's at like 23 billion right now." Tom, can you do me a favor? Can you look at what the volume of Bitcoin is today?
Let's go take a look. Holy cow.
You
I'll
see what
press
I'm saying?
refresh and see if we get $80 billion.
Thank you.
And that's a massive full credit to George. He's been saying that for 6 weeks. Wait for it. Wait for it. When we get that $80 million volume day in Bitcoin, the altcoins are going to take off. You've been pounding the table on that.
Pounding it.
And I have been saying, because volume's been really low. And I was saying, George, I mean, we're not even 80. We're not even getting anywhere near 40.
Right? You thought I was a complete nuts, didn't you? You're like, this man's an idiot. What is he talking about? And bam, baby, just like that, it hits.
On the button. Wow, that might be your best call yet.
Yeah, I know, because it's 10% of what Bitcoin is, and that's at 80 billion. And now that kicks off a whole bunch of different things. I don't know if people are really interested in the alt season of crypto, but that kicks off a whole bunch of fun times.
All right.
We are going to see astronomical numbers going up, and then we're going to see astronomical numbers coming back down. So you got to get in, and you got to have an exit point on everything.
Yeah, altcoin season is much, much, much more volatile than how Bitcoin performs, even than how the Bitcoin miners perform. Although we always stress all of this is very volatile space, but you can take that and multiply it to go to altcoin season, and then one day it's just over. And if you're not out, at least if you haven't taken profits along the way, you're just left holding the bag. So, and it's really, really hard, because some of these things, you're up 100%, you think you won, but what if it's going to go up 500% or 1,000%? It is tricky to, I would say, don't try and pick the absolute perfect top, as particularly in altcoins. If you feel like you got your money's worth, if it was me, I would take my money. Having said that, I'm in Bitcoin and XRP, and I'm not even in the neighborhood of thinking about taking profits on either one of those. So,
and Tom, with the news that it just came out, that means ETH is going to have some movement, and I mean, like, big movement. Like, ETH could double in the next 30 days. And
ETH is on fire. I got some articles on ETH that we can go through. It broke through 3,000. You can see it's at $3,002. I mean, ETH has doubled in the last couple of months, right? It got down to like $1,400. I want to get to Metaplanet, who is a member and gave a super chat. Thank you very much, sir. Tom, for the past year, CleanSpark has underperformed Bitcoin by 120%. That is not a vicious run. At what Bitcoin price does CleanSpark get back to $24? So you're right. Over a 1 year period, and I'm not talking about a 1 year period. I'm specifically talking about since April 8th. And we had a members only stream on April 8th. And we talked about that day that although I don't like to call the bottom, and I try to never call the bottom, it was just obviously the bottom. So they were smashing us over the head. Today's the bottom. The next day was the best day in the history of the stock market. So, and from there, the Bitcoin miners have drastically outperformed Bitcoin. So I'm talking about a 90-day window with this vicious run. So you're right, Metaplanet. Over a 12-month period, we still haven't caught up yet, which is why I think there's still a lot of room left to run. We've started up, but it's all about momentum. I mean, this is just basic laws of physics. The ball was rolling in the wrong direction. The first thing you have to do before you can get it to roll in the right direction is you need to stop the ball. We stopped it. It is now rolling in the right direction, and it seems to be rolling downhill, in my opinion, and picking up steam. Today notwithstanding, if you look at this week, this month, and last month, which we're going to do all of, the Bitcoin miners drastically outperformed Bitcoin through, I mean, it was not this week, but this month and last month. And last week was stunning, and that is another reason I thought we were set up for a pullback today. Last week, the Bitcoin miners were insane. So we'll look at that soon. But I do think 24 is a very, very reasonable price target for CleanSpark.
Next week is a huge week for crypto, by the way. And I think that the hedge fund dudes, and if you guys are listening, I know you are, because we always have these conversations, and I hate saying this because they make a lot of decisions listening to us, Tom. We don't have a big show, but we have a smart show, and that's the big difference. You know, I'd rather have a smart show than a big show because you guys are amazing, and Tom, you're amazing, and I think that's the key to this whole thing. But specifically with the big Bitcoin miner stock, I think we're going to see a double or triple this year from where they currently are. And the reason I say that is because of, go for it, Tom.
Go for it. You tell me.
Strategic reserve. And Trump's either going to sign an executive order or do something talking about we have to make, our Bitcoin mining company some type of asset for America. I don't know exactly how it's going to play out or anything like that, but that is going to cause, I think, a parabolic run in the Bitcoin miners. And I think the people that know, and I think that's the reason they're keeping these things down, because they're going to make you wait for it.
And that's a great point, George, because from a market cap standpoint, if you take all the publicly traded Bitcoin miners and add them up together, they're still tiny. So there's so much room for expansion. There's companies that have no revenue, no prototype of a product, that have a higher market cap than all of the Bitcoin miners put together.
Combined, yeah.
So it's not like there's not room to run. And this is extremely rare for such a tiny, tiny segment of the market. We've had the president of the United States specifically talk about the Bitcoin miners several times, talking about trying to incentivize to get, this is obviously not realistic and, in my mind, hyperbole. He wants 100% of the Bitcoin mining to be in the United States. Now, that's not going to happen. We all know that's not going to happen. And he knows that as he says it, I would assume. But his point is what George's point was. Very pro Bitcoin, very pro Bitcoin miner. I think it is now. This is why this run is different. And I know everybody always says that about every run. But this one's different because big money, institutional money, institutions beyond money, i.e. the executive branch of the government, is recognizing, guess what? This isn't some funny little thing, this cryptocurrency that people are messing around with over here. This could threaten what our financial markets look like. Kevin O'Leary was the first to call it. This will be a full-blown sector of the market on its own. And so from that perspective, we're still at the super beginning of this. It may not feel like it. And I understand, the people that bought Bitcoin for $1, right, they've already turned into billionaires. But there's a lot more room. There's a lot of runway ahead, in my opinion. And this time is different. And I got a few articles that talk about some of the fundamental differences in what's going on.
And Tom, as you go to that, Edmund saying, George, 5.5x on my XRP. Thanks for the heads up.
Nice.
Isn't that great, guys? This isn't like hyperbole. This is actual facts. And it's been brutal. We did a 10K challenge, which we didn't shy away from. We just don't post any videos because nobody wants to see the numbers. But so it went from 10K to $1,200. It went back up to 9,000, and now it's at like 4,400.
Yeah, it's been a brutal roller coaster, but it is coming back. And I will say, first, I'm going to interject. I'm going to interrupt myself by saying, please hit the thumbs up, smash the like button. Let's just get this stream out to people. It's just shocking to me how few people are interested in, and it goes to show the success of these hedge funds. They got everybody so spooked about what's going on over here. No one even cares anymore. They've all given up. And you got everybody watching right now should pat themselves on the back and be commended for all of those of you who bought the dip when it was the 40th dip. It's like at some point you can't buy the dip anymore. I understand. But I know a lot of you have talked about how you've held on, and when you can, you've bought in and made smart moves. And there's a lot of people here that are making money. And to follow up on what Edmund said, George has been buying and talking about XRP since it was at 30 cents. So it almost hit $3 today. That's 1,000%. So, and it looks like Edmund caught a lot of that. So congratulations, Edmund.
And it just made sense because when a company is being sued for no reason, you got to really, I would have never have bought XRP if the SEC did. I didn't even know about it until the SEC sued him. And that's when I got into it and started tracking and following and looking at everything they've done across the world, just not in the United States. And also, Tom, I want to say one more thing. Yeah. I said that the EV money would rotate into the Bitcoin miners. I still stand by that. That will be the new market cap.
Yeah, those companies, most of which are losing billions of dollars a year, have market caps well in excess of the Bitcoin miners. And you're going to see the run that Bitcoin just took, the next quarterly financial statements are going to be very good for a lot of Bitcoin miners, particularly Marathon has almost 50,000 Bitcoin on their balance sheet. Riot has almost 20,000. CleanSpark has just under 13,000. We don't know how much HUT has because they stopped reporting, but when we last knew, they had about 10,000. So you're going to see big pickups. I've got an article where you're going to see, now this is on a grander scale, but Microstrategy in the quarter ended June 30th, 2025, recognized $14 billion of bottom line income just on their Bitcoin holdings. So that is 100% passive. That's $14 billion in a quarter. This is a company that 3 years ago had a $1 billion market cap in total. They just made $14 billion in 3 months. So my point is, I think you're going to see, we just saw a bunch of good financial statements. You're going to see much better because June 30th, Bitcoin was at a much higher number than it was at March 31st. And now it's at a much higher number already. And I think we're still marching on. Now we can put up a poll. Let's just interject ourselves here and get a poll. Who's... Just a second.
Be right back.
Almost done typing this in. Terrible typer. Going to do one. Oh, if we do that, we got to do one more. Okay, I'm posting a poll right now. Pardon the second it took to get that done. What's next for Bitcoin? Are we going to pull back and retest some lower numbers? And I'm not even saying a number. Don't know what it is. Is it 112,000? That was the all-time high. Is it 100,000? Or are we going up next? Are we going to keep going up? We just had what looks like a breakout. Are we going to keep running to 130? And by the way, most people are talking about 140. Or, you know, are we going straight to 200,000? You know, are we exceptionally bullish? Or is there anybody left out there that thinks the bull cycle's over? This is it. This was the high. We're done. And I will tell you, we had 3 months ago, we were polling, you know, close to over 40% thought the bull market was over 3 months ago. So this just goes to show what they do to the retail investor. So we'll let that poll run for a few minutes and see what you guys think. I will tell you, it looks like I'm with the majority of you. I think we're going to keep running up to at least 130,000, and that doesn't mean so. What I would say is, there is volatility. We know the volatility is real. $112,000.00 was the all-time high for a few months. Could we go retest that line? It'd probably be a healthy thing. We could reset the RSI and the MACD and some of that kind of stuff, some of the technicals that are starting to look overbought. But I don't expect to go down dramatically. So to me, there's two numbers, 112,000 and maybe even 100,000. Could we bounce off of one of those? If we did, for me, I would buy more. If the Bitcoin and if the altcoins pulled back with them, what I'm really looking to get into is some more altcoins, because I'm starting to feel FOMO on altcoins. I'm going to wait for it. I'm not going to buy it on the day that it just had all these giant run-ups. But even if we do quickly retest some lower numbers, I think very soon we will be at 130,000. It looks to me like there's just nothing in the way of getting to 130 or 140 from where we are right now. So we'll see what you guys think. Midway, who's been a member for 19 months, said, at some point, if Bitcoin has a high price, while the stock prices of CleanSpark and Maro remain very low, should they sell some Bitcoin and buy back shares of stock? I mean, I had not considered that. So I'm processing that as you say it, because if they're not getting rewarded, particularly, right, like Marathon's got almost 50,000 Bitcoin. They're going to make $1 billion next quarter, right? They're a $7 billion market cap, and they're going to make $1 billion in the next time they report a quarter, not even a year. So, you know, when you think of the upside that may lay ahead for them, that's an interesting question. I don't know, because obviously we had a period of time where all of these companies were diluting. There was at the market offering after at the market offering, and it was frustrating people. But these companies accomplished a goal with those. That was not money wasted like with the EV companies who would, you know, do at the market offerings, raise $5 billion so that they could lose $5 billion this year. No, these companies invested it all into growing their businesses. A lot of these companies are 10 times the size that they were 2 or 3 years ago. So, you know, that's 1,000% growth of the size of your company. So there's a lot of value there. And if they're not getting paid for it, and if they're not getting paid for the Bitcoin on their balance sheet, I mean, most of these companies now, Marathon did buy some of their Bitcoin a couple of times along the way, but most of it is self-mined. I think all but 1,000 of CleanSparks is self-mined. All of Huts is self-mined, although they're talking about going into a treasury strategy and starting to buy more Bitcoin potentially to add to their balance sheet. So I don't know. That's a good question. But what I will say is we did move out of the at the market offering stock dilution phase. We are now in a neutral phase where these companies don't want to dilute, and Midway's proposing, is there a scenario maybe where we actually go the other way and start doing buybacks because the price is ridiculous, which I do still think for most of these companies, the price is very low. And, you know, I can't say that categorically that with every single Bitcoin miner, but a lot of these big companies, I think their price is still very much a buy, even though when you see how much they've run up in the last 90 days, it's hard to buy after such a big run up. But you got to ask yourself, what's your ultimate price target for these companies? Are they still a buy? Is your position already full? Are you looking to add more, right? Is your portfolio properly balanced? There's a lot of different factors that go into whether or not you want to make the next purchase, not just the recent run up. Admin saying this may look different once all the miners and Bitcoin treasury companies have released Q2 earnings and second half of 2025 plans. Yeah, exactly. Right. We're headed into earnings season. We're about a month away from getting earnings from all of these Bitcoin miners. And I think we're going to see some staggering numbers. I'm going to take a little break and show you something, because just to show how much money, and again, all these companies are different. So we'll talk about that. But first, I'm going to ask, we're at 52 likes. Thank you very much, everybody. If you could please hit the like button or the thumbs up button. It does help the stream in real time. So it is much appreciated. We're going for 100 likes. Okay. So I want to show you, I mean, we're at Bitcoin $118,000 right now. IREN put this out this week, July 7th. And there's one thing in particular I want to show you. Okay, so they reached their 50 exahash goal. They've been telling us they were going to get to 50 exahash by June 30th. And when they said that, it seemed hard to believe because, you know, they were going to have to double the size of their company to do so. But they did it. They were at 50 exahash as of June 30th, just like they told us. But that's not what I want to show you. Net electricity cost per Bitcoin mined, $26,000. Bitcoin's at $118,000 right now. There has never been a time in the history of Bitcoin where companies were making as much money per Bitcoin as they are right now today, and it's not even close. At the peak of the last bull market, the amount of money that IREN's making on each Bitcoin is more than the total amount that Bitcoin was worth, right? We reached 69,000 in the last bull market. Well, there's, right, 118 to 26. That's $90,000 in the middle. So 90,000 in profit. Now, I will say, this is just about as good as it gets. Their cost per electricity cost per coin is among the best in the industry. But CleanSpark has an excellent cost per coin. There's several other companies that have good cost per coins, and that's something worth looking at. And you can see that through the gross profits. And we'll get to take a look at that when the next quarterly results came out. But I will tell you, when Bitcoin was in the $80,000 range, IREN, their last quarter, they had not only positive cash flow, not only were they positive EBITDA, they were positive earnings per share by GAAP, right? Generally accepted accounting principles. So they were straight up profitable at $80,000. So imagine how much money this company's making right now at $118,000. So I think there's some really, really good financial statements coming up. Now, IREN doesn't hold any of their Bitcoin. They sell it all. And they are reinvesting it into their high-performance computing. A lot of these companies are looking for multi-streams. A lot of them have moved into a split between Bitcoin and high-performance computing. I think the only actual 100% pure play left on a Bitcoin miner is CleanSpark. They have made it crystal clear they will not be involved in high performance computing. They will use 0 megawatts of their electricity that they have access to for high performance computing / AI, and they will use 100% for mining Bitcoin. That is who they are. That's what they're going to do. I like that. I also like the fact that different companies have different philosophies. So for me as an investor, you know, it seems like if you're invested in 4 or 5 Bitcoin miners that you have a super high concentration, but it's very nice that, you know, there's 4 or 5 different business models going on here. Some of which I think are going to be quite successful. There won't just be one winner, in my opinion. And there will be some losers, I do believe. On top of that, there will be some consolidation, which there was this week. Maybe we should move to that next. One of our Bitcoin miners is disappearing. And by the way, this is the one that mined the most Bitcoin in the year 2022 and in the year 2023. And it's been in the top 5 Bitcoin miners for years and years and years. And of course, I am talking about Core Scientific. So, CoreWeave to acquire Core Scientific. When we go to the weekly charts, you're going to see there was a big pullback in Core Scientific as a result of the announcement of this deal. This isn't a done deal, but they've told us right here, you'll see Core Scientific shareholders will receive 0.1235 newly issued shares of CoreWeave for every 1 common share they have of Core Scientific. So the correlation is set. This has to get voted on by both boards and get approved and get done, but this seems like a done deal. And prior to this, CoreWeave announced they were going to make an offer. And people were looking at numbers much higher than this. So Core Scientific had a gigantic run up. And as a result of that, it had to pull back down to reality a little bit. You're going to see it's a big outlier this week. It was way down versus everything else. And that's the reason why it was just evening out a little bit of those higher expectations that people had for what the purchase price was going to be. So this works out, you know, and it depends, obviously. Now, Core Scientific stock is now just a proxy on CoreWeave. So, you know, if CoreWeave stock goes up, your Core Scientific is going to be worth more. If it goes down, it's going to be worth less. But there had to be that one-time adjustment to get to this correlation of 0.1235 shares per share of Core Scientific. So that's done. That pain is behind. And CoreWeave has already said they are not interested in Bitcoin mining. Core Scientific hasn't bought a new machine, a new ASIC Bitcoin miner in years. They had the biggest fleet out of any company by far. So they've just held on to the portion of that fleet that's still profitable. They were at around 18 exahash when last they reported. They're not reporting anymore. And now they're going to get bought out. And CoreWeave said they're not interested in Bitcoin mining. They want to use all of the megawatts of that energy for AI and high performance computing. So it's going to be soon. It will be time to wave goodbye to Core Scientific as a Bitcoin miner. And that's another one bites the dust, because we also had July 7th. So again, that's this week. Now the handwriting's been on the wall. They put out some announcements letting us know this is what's going on. But Bit Digital, stock ticker BTBT, they also stopped their monthly reporting. And they also are 100% leaving the Bitcoin mining space. They have sold 100% of their Bitcoin hodl. This is now going to be an Ethereum hodl company. That's what they're going to do. So you can see Bit Digital shifts entire treasury to Ethereum, becomes one of the largest ETH holders among public companies. They are not the largest, but they now have, you'll see as of selling all their Bitcoin and raising a bunch of money, they now have 100,603 Bitcoin. So they crossed the Ethereum. They crossed the 100,000 Ethereum threshold. Prior to that, they were at 24,000 Ethereum. So this is their new business model. Understand, inside of this business model, they have a wholly owned subsidiary just for branding purposes that is an energy, high performance computing AI company. So they are pursuing that as a revenue stream, and they're pursuing hodling and staking ETH as a revenue stream, but their Bitcoin mining operations are done. So they're out. So that's a couple of companies, in a short period of time that have just kind of left the industry. And I think there's more to come, and I can guess who's next. So I think you're going to see several more come. I think we're going to continue to see consolidation in this space, but it's in different ways than we thought, right? This company just, they were the smallest of all that we were tracking. They just shifted gears, and they're just going to do something different. Whereas with Core Scientific, they got bought out by CoreWeave, and I think the price was $9 billion effectively. The final price will be determined because it's an all-stock deal. It will be determined based on what the shares of stock are worth on the day that this deal closes, when and if it closes. So you've got Core Scientific being sold at $9 billion. That's bigger. That market cap is bigger than the biggest Bitcoin mining company. It's 2 or 3 times bigger than most of the big Bitcoin mining companies. Companies that were mining 2 or 3 times as much Bitcoin as they were. Now, they had another part of their business, I understand. They had diversified and put a lot into their high performance computing, energy side of their business as well. But my point is, they got $9 billion, and Bitweave is basically just saying, we're going to kind of throw out the Bitcoin miners and move on from there. Welcome back, George.
Duty calls. You got to do the duty, man.
How
you doing?
You got to do what you got to do. We're doing good. We got 63 likes. Thank you, everybody, very much. It does help us a lot. If you could hit the thumbs up or the like button, it's a huge help to the stream in real time and to the channel. So thank you guys very much.
Tell me if it's not the best feeling in the world to be vindicated with Bitcoin.
If it's what?
It's not the best feeling in the world to be vindicated.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially since, George and myself we've been doing this for 4.5 years now, and we've been called every name under the sun. But here we are at Bitcoin 117,700, right? This is a place remember, we were at Bitcoin 15,500 in December of 2022. That was a double bottom in November and December around the FTX debacle. And that was the bottom of the crypto winter. All was lost. And, a lot of these companies are up 1,000% from the bottom. So while many of them are still, actually, none of them have reached their all-time highs. No Bitcoin mining company has reached its all-time high. They are up 300, 400, 500, 700, 1,000% off of their lows from the crypto winter. So for those who stuck with it, dollar cost averaged in, right, you may have a lot of positions that are in the green or big time in the green. Now, if you bought once at the peak of the last cycle, then obviously we're nowhere near back. These companies are nowhere near back to where they were then. But for those who have been paying attention and doing their due diligence and buying on buying opportunities, I have one position left that's red. And I suspect it will be green soon. It was once my greenest position, and that is Bitfarms. I went from up, 200 and something percent on Bitfarms to at one point I was down over 40%. Now it's had a really nice rally. It's gotten.
What do you think Bitfarms is going to do now, Tom? David just asked that. Thanks, David. Go ahead.
I'll go to the chart because that's one of the ones that I wanted to look at. And before I do that, so on the same topic, but before we look at the chart, I want to show you something that came out this week. Okay. This was filed with the SEC on July 8th. And this relates to Bitfarm. This is Riot updating their current holdings in Bitfarm. Now, remember, they put out, I think they filed a 144 with the SEC, letting them know they have just about 91 million shares of Bitfarms, and it's their intent to sell all of them in a reasonable time frame. That came out a few months ago. So to me, that made me very scared of Bitfarms because Bitfarms' volume had fallen to the floor. There were days where their volume was only 5 million shares traded in a day, 10 million shares, 8 million shares. And at that rate, Riot trying to get out of their 90 million shares was going to take forever. I thought there was the potential for this stock in the short term to get wrecked. But here's what happened. All of a sudden, out of the blue last week, volume went through the roof on this stock and it ran like the wind. And we now see that as of the 8th, and it's now the 11th, so it's probably lower than this, that 91 million shares is now 62 million shares. So they've sold almost 30 million shares of their Bitfarms. And in that time, Bitfarms is up like 50%. So this is the period of time I thought if it's ever going to happen, Bitfarms would be getting beaten up, but they've avoided that. And their volume has gone up dramatically in the last couple of weeks. So now I'm sitting here saying if they got through the first 30 billion of this and Bitfarms took a 50% run to the upside, I'm not really worried now. The volume's back to normal where it used to be with Bitfarms. So if it's trading 15, 20 million shares a day, they can churn through these shares however long it takes. But at 5 or 10 million shares, it seemed just not doable without causing a catastrophe. So I think the catastrophe avoided, in my opinion. I know there's a lot of people that really dislike this company. There's a lot of people that have lost a lot of money on this company. Like I said, it's my only red position. So I'm one of them, but I think it will be green. So let's go, with that said, let's go to the chart. So this is Bitfarms on the 1-day time frame. And you'll see I have the 3 lines that I want to talk about. There was a line down here at 68 cents. We got there on April 8th. That was the day we did call the bottom on this channel. That's where we got to 68 cents. We very nearly revisited. You can see we just missed. We got down to 69. Let's see. No, 70 cents. So was the low on this day. So, we basically retested this line. And this is the area where all these days the volume was very, very low and this was drifting downwards. So it didn't look good. But then look what happened. We have had, right from that day to the top, that's a 65% run up to where it was at the early this morning. At the close of the day, we're up 53% since June 23rd. So in a couple of weeks, while Riot was able to get rid of 30 million of their shares, Bitfarms was up 50%. So to me, that's very encouraging. And you'll see I have a blue line at $1. And you can look at the consolidation there, right? It held this today. It really tried to break out, but there was a big sell-off, a lot of profit taking with the Bitcoin miners as Bitcoin was running. So most of the Bitcoin miners had a bad day. If you look, Bitfarms actually ended up at 0%. So I think that, BitDR was up 0.5%. Marathon was up 0.7%. Those were the only ones in the green. MicroStrategy had a very nice day, so it's catching up as well. And obviously, Bitcoin had a great day. But my point is, I think we've now very clearly held this line at $1. There's this line here at around $1.18 that I think is a very weak line. I expect, maybe we'll test this, but I expect to blow through this. And this $1.50 line to me, I think, is strong. So, that's next stop along the way in my mind is for Bitfarms to get back to $1.50. And if we look where it could go from there, right, this was in November of 2024. So that is now, 8 months ago. This was at $2.76. It had a period of consolidation here at over $2 at around $2.16. So none of these numbers are unrealistic if Bitcoin continues to run. So to me, the first thing I'm looking at is $1.50. And then, I got a line at around 216. If we can get back to this 276, these are lofty goals. I don't know how long it's going to take to get back, but I do think Bitfarms did somehow manage to avoid what looked like a setup for a semi-catastrophic situation for their stock. It did change their company. It forced them to abandon their plans. They were going to do more at the market offerings, raise more money, and get to 35 exahash. But because their stock got down to 68 cents, you can't really do, if you're Bitfarms, you can't do an at the market offering when your stock's under $1. So they got locked out of that. And it was really the failed hostile takeover attempt by Riot that really destroyed Bitfarms in the short term. They had to reshape who they were. I think they're going to come out of this not as good as they would have had that not happened. It was, I think, a big setback for them. But still, this is, in my opinion, a healthy company with a healthy balance sheet. And when they've stopped reporting their Bitcoin results on a monthly basis as well, but they were at about 20 exahash when they last reported. So that still leaves them kind of top 5 Bitcoin miners, even though they're not reporting. So I'm optimistic. I know a lot of people were pounding the table, telling me to sell this at 70 cents and
me.
And right. And I get it. Like, I'm not criticizing.
I did.
Oh, you sold it. You sold it at 70 cents.
Yep.
And I get it because, I mean, we talked about it. It seemed like the perfect storm for this thing. We talked about this breaking that line of support at 68 cents and maybe running down to 50 cents. That's the conversation we were having.
Bitcoin to 300K. I'm going to read his comment. Sell Bitfarm, buy HBAR, XRP, SUI, and XLM. And that's what I did. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Well,
that's what I did.
Then you didn't miss the run because all of those ran just like Bitfarms did. See, as long as you reinvest, that's the other part of the equation. What are you going to do with the money? Okay. Right. And that's what I was looking at. My equation was, is Bitfarms going to underperform the other Bitcoin miners or the altcoins or whatever the case may be? Ultimately, I decided not to, and I was very close to making that trade 2 times, but I didn't do it, and I feel like it paid off. And I do think it's up from here. So
I think 8:11, and today is 7:11. Can you buy me a Slurpee, please? I think a month from here, I think we're going to be very, very happy
with the miners.
I'm going to tell you pretty much the entire stock market. Have you talked about the news? Someone's getting cold feet and think they should leave.
Let's switch gears to that right now. We'll go through the results of this poll. 84 votes. Thank you everybody for participating. And 84 votes in the poll and 84 likes. Thank you very much, everybody. If you just got here or if you haven't, it does help us out a lot if you hit the thumbs up or smash the like button. Let's go through the results. What's next for Bitcoin? a pullback and retest some lower numbers. So I talked about let me go to the one-day Bitcoin chart, and then we're going to get to what George was just alluding to, because it's potentially game-changing news.
Could be the biggest news of the year.
Right? There's a few lines in my mind that I'm looking at. When we got a new all-time high of 112, this held for months. So could we go retest this line? Right? That would be a perfectly reasonable thing for Bitcoin to do before it went to the upside. I don't know that we're going to do that. I'm just saying it's certainly, I don't think anybody would sit here and go, I am shocked we retested the previous all-time high. My final line is this purple line here, and I have too many purple lines. I should get rid of these. This line at 99,860, I'm going to call it 100,000. To me, I just don't think we're going under 100,000 ever again. So could we retest 100? I guess there's a scenario where we could retest 100. That still wouldn't even be a 20% pullback from the top, right? 100 would be just around 15, almost 16% pullback. And 20% pullbacks are quite normal. So a 20% pullback from the top would be somewhere around $95,000. So there's some of you that may argue, hey, that's in play. Maybe we're going to go retest that. That's, again, we had 5 in the year 2024, a year that was outstanding for Bitcoin, a year where Bitcoin ended the year up 120%. We had 5 20% pullbacks, 20% or more. That's the volatility. That's what's real. Although I'm going to get to an article that's talking about the fact that due to certain things, it has behaved less that way in the last 90 days than it has in the entire history of Bitcoin. So I don't know. Having said that, I still, until they prove otherwise, the volatility is real in this space, and you got to understand it. 53% think we're going up straight to 130,000. 5% are saying we're not going to stop until we get to 200,000. But there were almost 10% of you that think this was it. This push right here this week, this actually today was the peak. So not 9% voted that today was the peak. That is going to be the all-time high, and the bull market cycle is over for Bitcoin. So, we're only going to know the answer to that in hindsight.
Do you think world events really affect the price of Bitcoin?
In the short term, I think they can have massive impacts on the price of Bitcoin.
I just feel like some things coming down the pipeline that are just going to be really good for Bitcoin. Just crazy, crazy things that have been ruling this earth for a long time. And I think they're going to happen. I just can't wait until they do, but I'm not going to be like, it just, I feel really good for where we're at. And then when you read this next article, it even makes me like giddy.
So we've had a couple of shifts. We had a shift in administration from an administration that was decidedly, and this is an apolitical conversation. I'm just stating facts. The previous administration was very rigid on Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. The SEC, Gary Gensler, the former head of the SEC, I mean, to say he was anything short of anti-cryptocurrency, he had basically had a lawsuit open with every single major player in Bitcoin, every exchange, Coinbase, right? The XRP is the most infamous of them all. That lasted 4.5 years. Well, we had a switch to an administration that's pro-Bitcoin. A switch to administration that signed an executive order that they want a Bitcoin strategic reserve for the U.S. government. We also had a switch in the head of the SEC. So Jerome Powell's out, Every single lawsuit against all of these crypto companies has now either been finalized or dismissed. So we now have a Congress that's looking to pass legislation to mainstream first stable coins. That one's knocking on the door, the Genius Act, and then a bunch of legislation behind it. So what's the last piece of the puzzle? So what George was alluding to. So I'm going to get to that right now. Or so I say. Okay, this was today. And George found this, so congratulations to George. Statement from Chairman of the Board of Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, William J. Pulte, on reports that Jerome Powell is considering resigning. Washington, D.C., quote, I'm encouraged by reports that Jerome Powell is considering resigning. I think this will be the right decision for America, and the economy will boom. There's not, and we're going to do this poll next, but I'm not aware of one person in the financial universe that is in favor of the Fed's policy right now. In my opinion, and I've been screaming this at the top of my lungs, it's insanity. At this point, it feels like, I don't know Jerome Powell's intent. I can't get inside his brain, but by every appearance, this feels like an extremely political stance that he has taken with, if you're in the United States, this is your money, guys, because, right, for as long as these interest rates stay up, you're paying in two ways. Number one, we're going to pay $1 trillion in interest out of the federal government. But guess what else? You want to buy a house? Well, too bad. Jerome Powell won't lower interest rates. You want to buy a car and get a loan? Too bad. Jerome Powell won't lower interest rates. You got credit cards out there? You're paying a lot of interest because Jerome Powell won't lower interest rates. We're the only large economy in the world that has not lowered interest rates yet. Everyone else is somewhere between 2 to 4 points lower on their interest rate. So this policy to me is madness. I'm obviously not been shy about my opinion, but I'd like to do a poll. Feel free to disagree. I'm going to put this up and see what you guys think about the Fed's decision to not lower rates.
And this is the other thing that people don't realize too. We need that interest rate to come down so prices at the grocery store comes down. People don't realize how much we're in a debt-based economy. What that means is this: businesses run on other people's money. OPM, yeah, you know me. That's a song. And so we have to get this rate down. If we get this rate down, you're going to start to see eggs and milk and chicken and beef all come down. Everybody's saying that these things are going to go ballistic. I'm not one that believes that. I believe the exact opposite. I think the next few years are going to be just amazing. And I haven't changed that opinion, because look at things are moving in the right direction. Jobs are coming back to the United States. There's opportunities again. And that's the thing that no one talks about. To me, there just wasn't any opportunities.
We've seen a lot of good data points, and that is a part of, right, here's my problem. This is my issue with Jerome Powell's policy in his term there. There was a time when inflation was spiraling out of control. Every person on the planet knew it. Everyone. But if you guys remember the talking point, this is transitory. It's not going to last. It's not a problem. We don't need to raise rates. We don't need to do anything. It's all transitory. Well, the result of that is we ended up having the highest level of inflation in the United States in the last 40 years. So only then does he start to raise interest rates. Now we've had a return to normalcy. In fact, for the last full year, for the last 12 months, the interest rate on average, the inflation rate on average is almost a full point below the 50-year average. So we're at about 2.5, and the 50-year average inflation is more like 3.5%. So while the Fed's target rate is 2%, that's not what they've achieved over the last 50 years by any means. So inflation's gone, but now he's using it. The tariffs are the boogeyman. They're going to get you. We haven't seen any inflation, but I can't lower interest rates because trust me, even though it hasn't happened in the last year plus, it's coming. So it was being wrong at the beginning, right? Transitory was nonsense talk. We were screaming that on this channel. That was ridiculous. Inflation was out of control. And there was a specific reason for it. We were forced from a supply chain situation. We shut the world down. We were getting inflation, period. There was no stopping it. And remember, once the inflation happens, now that inflation is down to 2 or 2.5%, that doesn't mean that other stuff went away. That continues to grow on top of the inflation that spiraled out of control. So letting that spiral out of control was a big part of this problem. And now, not lowering rates, right? The European central bank's already at 2.5%. The United States is at 4.5%. They're about to vote, and they're going to vote again not to lower rates. They're already 2 points behind the European Union. They're 4 points behind Japan. So it just doesn't, to me, I can't find any line of reasoning why our interest rate, especially since as a federal government, we have more debt, so we have more interest expense than every single other country on the planet, all added up, put together. And we're paying the highest interest rate.
I remember you said, you realize we're going to be paying $1 trillion in interest. $1 trillion. And it doesn't need to be that way. Hey, before we forget, James Tracy, thanks for joining the club. Tuesdays, 4:15. We have an unbelievable talk where you get to kind of see us a little bit raw and have probably more emotions than we currently do on an open stream.
For sure.
It's a lot of fun. I'm going to be honest. I look forward to these things every week, and it's just amazing because it's not Tom and George always, it's everybody. That's what makes this thing work. Is all of us together coming up with a strategy, encouraging us. Like, I can tell you a little secret is, like, about 10 days ago, I was ready to sell all my XLM. I'm like, I'm done, Tom. Tell me this is stupid. It's done. This stupid thing's killing me. I'm done. And Tom's like, well, let's look at it, George. Because, don't you hate it when you lose all this money and you got nowhere to go? And I was down crazy amounts of money, guys. Like, so much money, I wouldn't even tell my wife. And I'm just like, dude, I screwed up my life. I can't even believe I lost this kind of money. But there's one thing that I've learned in investing is sometimes you have to lose to learn to gain. And that's the key. It's complicated. I know. Thanks, Seeker. You perfect timing. And I think that's what we forget when we're in this investing community. Guys, we did a poll. Our investing community, the guys that are members in our things, we're not talking about people trading $10,000 and $20,000. These are shooters, guys. These are guys with $500,000, $1 million, $2 million, and up. And it's incredible that they take the time to spend with us because we come up with a strategy and we move. And we're not one of those people that say, you need to get in on this coin and let's pump it and dump it. We don't do that. Tom will take and look at the fundamentals of these companies to figure out what we should do. And that's the reason Tom's not really much in crypto right now, is because he looks at it and he shakes his head.
I have a much harder time getting my head around, other than I get Bitcoin, I get XRP, I get the use case.
You get XLM now, don't you?
I get XLM once George and it's funny because George is the one who kind of got me rolling on understanding XLM's function. And then he panicked like a week later and said, let me get out. But you didn't. He didn't. And had a huge run up in it. So
up 50% in a matter of 3 months. You know, and I explained to him, you know, there's a thing called intra-bank. And I explained to him XLM is going to be intra-bank, and it's actually going to be used with PayPal. PayPal signed a deal with XLM to use their token for intra-bank transfers.
And so that's a huge deal. PayPal is a monster, and it's a sign of things to come. They're not going to be the last ones that jump on board.
And I won't bore you with how blockchain works and stuff like that, but look at it this way. Let's say that, and I want to know that too, Robert. I'm going to ask him again about that statement that Carlos put out there. But can you imagine having a transfer of $10,000, 5 years, and the money doesn't show up or something happens, and you're able to click on that blockchain and see exactly where it went? That's what's so cool about this. So Carlos said that, and I don't know if he read this someplace, that U.S. government acquiring Marathon.
I have not seen or heard a whisper of that. That doesn't mean it's not true.
It's just we don't know about it.
I haven't seen. I scour. You know, I'm just one person, but I spend as much time as I possibly can scouring for any information on the Bitcoin miners. And I haven't seen, and trust me, I see a lot of stuff that I don't talk about at all. So if I see something on StockTwits or on Reddit, if I can't confirm it somewhere else, I don't talk about it because.
Well, Tom, I think if it happened, I think you could go to the Marathon after hours stock and it would be going parabolic right now.
Oh, is this they're saying something that just happened now? I mean, if it's happened in the last today, then. You know, it's certainly possible. Let's go there.
Yeah, it's down.
It's down.
Half a point. Yeah. So, but yeah, we're looking to that. I don't know anything about it. I haven't heard anything about that. What would be the reason for something like that to happen, Tom?
I just don't see any scenario where that would happen. I think the likelihood of that is negligible, very close to zero.
Okay.
That's just my opinion.
And that's a good thing. This is a great point to learn from, guys. We don't want you to take any of the stuff that we're saying as financial advice. We want you to take our stuff and we want you to research it. And we want you to come up with your own conclusions of what to do. Not because Tom or George said to do it, because we're knuckleheads. We make stupid decisions all the time. But we want you guys to be your own knucklehead because we don't want you coming saying, you freaking paid shill, you're shill. We're just telling you what we're doing, and we're being very open and transparent of what we are doing. Hey, I got wrecked for about a year and a half in this world. Luckily, I bought Bitcoin and XRP, and that balanced out my stupid investments.
You diversified and dollar cost averaged in, and those are two fundamental principles of investing. So again, everybody has their own strategy, but that is just about as tried and true a strategy as you can get. If you still believe in the underlying investment, obviously if the investment thesis changes, then you change your mind. So, and that's where I was with Bitfarms, because Bitfarms did have a fundamental change in their company. So I had to decide, is this still a company that I think is going to succeed moving forward? Because it's a different company than it was a year ago. So, you know, you do have to reassess continuously. George likes to say it's a fluid situation. And yes, none of this is financial advice. I have a saying that you can't borrow somebody else's conviction. So
no.
If you're watching somebody on YouTube, I don't care how excited they are when they're telling you that this stock ABC is going to 10x. And then you get to the end of that video and you match their excitement for that moment because, man, they just laid out the absolute perfect case. And this is a sure thing. I'm buying it tomorrow. Well, as soon as it goes in the wrong direction, none of that conviction was yours. And then the first thought that pops into your head was, hey, that guy was an idiot. He was wrong. I got to get out of this. I got to sell because you don't even know what the company is and you haven't done your... So, you know, if you watch one of those types of videos, that's good. That's okay. I watch videos like that and I look for ideas, but then I go research them myself and decide, does this make sense? Is this something I'm interested in? Does this work into my portfolio? Does this work into my time frame? Do I think the underlying underpinnings of this company are good? You know, you got to do all your own due diligence, not just technical analysis. If you don't know the company that you own the shares of, you will be easily scared out. And that's what happens, especially with the massive volatility. There's always going to be a chance for them to scare you into selling your stock if you're in any of the Bitcoin miners or any cryptocurrency because they are massive volatility by nature. So yes, please have conviction, your own conviction.
And I have to tell you this, and I haven't said this in a long, long time, okay? But the way the hedge funds work is they have a whole bunch of, sorry guys, I'm gonna spill the beans on you guys. The way they work is this. Let's say they want to move a position into Mara, okay? Well, they're going to go and they're going to put article after article all over the place about how much Mara sucks. You know, oh, I'll just steal something from CleanSpark. You know, they bought a jet. Let's go run that with everybody. Let's drive that price down because they have more cash than you and I, than everybody on the stream combined. They have more cash. And then they run that scenario.
And it's not close.
Right. It's not even close. Right. They'll build up their position. And after they build up their position, they will move and then change the narrative on Marathon. And that's what they're doing. And they don't do it for a day, a week, or a month. Sometimes they'll do it for years.
They'll do it for, right. They've got sophisticated algorithms and, you know, the small hedge funds have $100 billion. The big one, you're talking about astronomical money. And so they can wait.
I mean,
Warren
Tom,
Buffett, go ahead.
Would you be in shock if you saw Marathon get to $200 by the end of the year?
I'm not expecting that to happen, but no, I would not be shocked.
Right. And so that's what they do. They know.
All right.
They make this decisions probably months, and they made this decision a long time ago. And that's what's sad because what we're playing against too is there's another thing that I didn't even talk about is that we don't even talk about it at all. And that's Aladdin. We don't even talk about Aladdin, you know, and how it manipulates money and prices. And it's doing so many trades so quickly. The stock market was never set up for this. Sorry.
That's all right. You know, they have every advantage. The only thing we have is our conviction and time. I want to get to Midway. Thank you very much for the super chat and thanks for being a member. Midway said, you guys deserve an award for your consistency. No matter how good or bad things are going, you've been doing streams each week for almost 4 years. So thank you very much, Midway. I appreciate that. And you've been with us for a long time on the journey as well as a bunch of our other members have been here for years with us and some of the subscribers that I see in the chat. So thanks for taking the ride with us, guys. It's been a wild ride, but I think the best is yet to come. So, and we took 0 weeks off. We have not hidden from good days, bad days, whatever it is. We come on here and there's days I know I'm going to come on here and the majority of the chat is going to be about how stupid I am. And, you know, that's okay. It's what.
And I mean, I only had one person really get underneath my skin, and I won't say who it is because I know he's watching and I know he's a hedge fund guy. And so, hi, buddy. How are you? We're not quitting. Sorry. That's awesome, Larry. Oh, yeah, but look at what Robert looked up. CleanSpark, 77% institutions. That's how much they hold of it. And then Mara is 74%.
Right. So where do you think those are going? And guess who's the number one holder of probably both of those? Number 1 and 2.
BlackRock.
Let's go see. Let's go see. BlackRock and Vanguard is your standard issue.
And I mean, I'm sorry. I get hyper, but whoever said I need a nap, Michael, I always need a nap.
Here's Marathon. Who's the number 1 institutional holder in Marathon? BlackRock. Who's number 2? Vanguard. Let's check CleanSpark. Oh, see, now this is very encouraging to me. Although I think actually they've miscalculated. I got to go to a different website. They've totally miscalculated all this. So ignore this. This is wrong. It's most likely BlackRock and Vanguard are 1 and 2. Goldman Sachs does not own 87%. So the way they've calculated this, there's about 300% ownership in this company. So Yahoo Finance blew it on that one. All right, welcome to Talking Investing.
Lordy Lord. You didn't see Lord?
Oh, Lord, welcome. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the squad. Much appreciated. We do a members only live stream every Tuesday after the market closes. So those are all there. There's a bunch of videos there as well. So you can check that out. And looking forward to hearing what you have to say and think in our, especially in our members only. Like George said, you know, we got to stay inside the guardrails with the algorithm when we're doing our regular live streams. But when it's members only, we talk much more openly. Not that we're hiding anything, just, you know, you guys know what's off limits on YouTube. So.
Seeker, I agree with that statement, by the way. And it's sad, but it is what it is.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, BlackRock, and to a not to a lesser extent, somehow Vanguard goes under the radar. But those two companies have just about the same amount of money under management, and it's over $10 trillion each.
A piece. Yeah, a piece, yeah.
So you're talking about $20 trillion of money in the market that's assets under management of two companies.
And you know what? On Tuesday, I'm going to explain something that is just mind-blowing when you think about it. I can't explain it here because I can't explain it now because it's the truth about how money really works. And most people can't comprehend it because they want to think it's a fair system. And in all cases, it is a fair system. And you see my head? It is a very fair system. Very fair. And we have to find ways to peel the banana back so we can get some. And that's really what it is. It's the hardest thing ever to do. Investing time, what percentage of people, day traders and individual investors, lose money?
The vast majority.
Yeah, more than 50%.
Oh, much more than 50%.
More than 50%. So if you guys are making money in the market, congratulations. You're beating more than 50% of your peers.
If you're not committing the time, and there's nothing wrong with that because a lot of people don't have the time to commit. But if you're not committing some amount of time to understand the companies you're investing in, you're probably better off just buying the SPY or the Qs, because the reality is the market is a beast that has continued to just go up and to the right. So over longer periods, yes, there's pullbacks, but over long periods of time, right here, we don't have to speculate. So this is what just happened. I'm going to look short term. Right, this day right here was April 7th. So that's the SPY, which is the S&P 500. But I'm going to zoom out. Right, the further we zoom out, this is just an animal that goes higher and higher and higher. I'm only here. Here's 2016. If you'd have put all your money in this in 2016, you'd be up 250% right now. So, and this was a vicious pullback. And we get these. I mean, this was, you know what, we're not allowed to talk about it, but everybody knows what happened in February and March of 2020. I mean, look at the pullback. So you can do one of two things when this happens. That's a 37% pullback. You can panic and say, you know what? I'm going to sell everything right now. I can't afford to lose all my money. Or you can go, a buying opportunity like this comes along once every 10 or 20 or 30 years. I'm going to buy the dip. So that's why patience, you can see if you use time, and that's the Warren Buffett quote I was going to go to earlier, although I disagree with him on many issues. I do completely agree that he said the stock market is a vehicle that steals money from the impatient and gives it to the patient.
And that's not me, guys. It's not me at all. Especially when I say in my crypto, like I started taking money and moving it into BTC because I just couldn't do the miners, because I just couldn't take the price suppression. And it just, I mean, I got crushed, guys. And you got to have you don't realize how much it is important to get in a group, not even us, anybody, and to get into a group so that you figure out when you make your decisions. And not only that, and this was a really important thing to learn, is like I was talking to Tom about, and the Tom I would call a seasoned investor. He's been doing this a lot longer than me. I've just been doing this for 3 or 4 years, guys. I have not been doing this long. And the other thing that we forget is the exit point of when we're leaving and how are you exiting and why are you doing it that way? You know, and Tom, what'd you do with IREN?
Well, I put a stop loss in on IREN, and I was thinking about selling my entire position because I bought on, you know, I already had a position and I basically doubled down on April 8th because it just was seemed to me to be the buying opportunity of a lifetime. And I was talking on the members only, and this is where it's great to have a community, because I said, you know what, I'm thinking about just selling that, taking my win, and moving it around to a couple of other Bitcoin miners. Well, that's because it had taken a run, and I'm going to go to IREN right now. Look at the run IREN took. From April 8th to the top, 253% in 3 months. 250. So when we talk about things 2xing, 3xing, 4xing, 5xing, that's not a fantasy. This thing went up 253% in 3 months. So to me, I was feeling greedy and feeling like I should take profits. But I had that conversation down here. And I said, you know what? We've run from $5 to $14. I'm getting greedy. So I put a stop loss in. And as a result, I got to catch the $14 to $16 run. And by the way, it's been as high as 18, and I think it's consolidating to maybe get back there. So, but if not, I've now raised my stop loss 2 times. So my stop loss is now much higher than the amount of money I was going to sell it for the day I was going to sell it. So there's a lot of different ways to do that, but it goes to exit strategy. There would have been nothing wrong with selling it all as well. You know, whatever your plan is. But to George's point, if you have no plan and you're just watching along, then you're going to get stuck holding the bags at the end of the day. So there should be some type of profit-taking strategy or exit strategy. And, you know, the time frames can be different. Like I talked about, I don't think for my Bitcoin and my XRP, I just don't think we're anywhere near the top yet. Now, if I was in some very small altcoins and they ran up like wild, I would get in and out of them. I haven't been doing that yet. So that could be next. So much stuff we didn't get to today, George. It's crazy. Let's see if I can find this one. Just we just grab some random stuff. I got another 20 articles on my checklist. Let's get to Midway first. Midway 1, thank you for the super chat. Thank you for being a member. Been with us a long time. IREN is probably a stock where it would be good for people to hold half of their shares long term. If they do get AI deals for all of their megawatts, the stock could go up to 60 and maybe even 100. And I agree with that because they have allocated, they accomplished what they accomplished to me. There's two companies that I think have just outperformed all the rest of the companies. And I think a lot of these Bitcoin miners have done a good job. But IREN and CleanSpark to me, it's just miraculous what they've done. IREN got themselves from 1 exahash to 50 exahash in 2.5 years. That is staggering. That's a 50x in the size of their company. At the same time, they created a lot of infrastructure for high performance computing. So they're starting to diversify. And, you know, like Midway's saying, all it takes is one big press release. Boom, we just got, that's what happened to Core Scientific, which went from in bankruptcy to just getting bought for $9 billion in a couple of years because they got the CoreWeave contract. And that's all it takes. So I agree, Midway. That's their diversification strategy. And they diversified, but they did so, they became one of the 3 biggest Bitcoin miners and they're diversifying. So one was not at the expense of the other. They've got both going on and they have the lowest cost per coin, I think, out of all the publicly traded Bitcoin miners on top of all of that. So I'm very bullish on this. The only reason I was considering selling is, again, you know, I was up 200% in you know, a couple of months and you start to feel greedy. But the stop loss was a better solution for me anyway. I wish I remember who told me that. I know it was a member because it was in our members only chat that we discussed that. And you might say, well, that's obvious, but you know what? Sometimes you just get so focused on or fixated on a specific strategy that, you know, you forget about the other options that are out there. Let's look at the poll. Do you think the Fed should have lowered interest rates already? 77% say yes. 23% say no. They think that it's okay that we have not lowered interest rates. So we'll end that poll. Just a little over 3/4 of you think the Fed is late. By the way, we're over 100 likes. So thank you everybody very much. And if you just got here or you haven't hit the like button, the more likes, the better. It does help the channel out a lot and we do appreciate it. So thanks for the likes. Thank you, Midway, for your insight. You know, IREN's one of my top. I will tell you, and again, not financial advice, and I've said this many times. And then let's go take a look at what these stocks did this week, this month, this year, because we haven't looked at that, and I think that's important. I said at the beginning of this year, I think the stocks that have big hodl positions are going to outperform the stocks that don't in 2025, with the exception of IREN, because they grew so fast and they're so profitable that the market is going to reward them as well. So my top 4 conviction plays were Marathon, Riot, Cleanspark, not in this order, Marathon, Riot, Cleanspark, and IREN. And it's starting to play out that way. So let's go look at a couple of things real quick. The first thing is all the June results are in. Everybody who's going to report has reported. And it's worth noting, Core Scientific no longer does a monthly operational update, but they do post on Twitter, and they are getting bought out, it would seem. So they're going to go away. Bitfarms no longer does a monthly operational update. And that was a gigantic, gigantic disappointment to me because for years, on the very first business day of the month, first thing in the morning, they had their monthly operational update out. It was clockwork. HUT's not doing them anymore. TeraWulf is not doing them anymore. BitDigital's not doing them. And they've let us know, by the way, they're just not even mining Bitcoin anymore. They are now a pure play on Ethereum. And that's what they want to be known as. So that's 5 companies already that have dropped out of the reporting game. I suspect, I'll tell you, there's 2 companies that I think, and it's HUT and TeraWulf. And HUT is doing this a different way. They have created a subsidiary. That subsidiary is going to merge with Griffin, and that's going to be the Bitcoin mining portion of their business. HUT 8 itself, while that will be an asset of theirs and they'll own a part of that company, HUT 8 itself is not going to be involved in Bitcoin mining at all. So I think it's going to be American Bitcoin is going to be the name of the company. Again, they're going to merge with Griffin Mining, which is a micro cap existing Bitcoin mining company. So it's not that they got out of Bitcoin mining altogether. They've just kind of shifted it not only into a different department, but into a completely different company. And now it's going to be a publicly traded company. So
isn't that funny, Tom? It went from U.S. Bitcoin to HUT to now American Bitcoin.
That's right. That's the life cycle. And which reminds me of an article I definitely want to get to before we go. And I think TeraWulf, and I haven't said this out loud, but I'm going to right now. I think TeraWulf is going to phase themselves out of the Bitcoin mining business. They stopped reporting. Their cost per coin was escalating and escalating and escalating. It was basically triple IREN's cost per coin, just the electricity. And it seems to me like, they're all of those guys' background is in energy. And so I think they're going to go to high performance computing and become an energy company. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think that makes sense. But I do think you're going to see them. They're not reporting anymore. They've stopped telling us what their exahash is, how many Bitcoin they have. Even their goal was only to get to 13 exahash, right? You're looking, Marathon's currently at 57. And Cleanspark and IREN got to exactly 50 at June 30th. So, when you've got a company that's aspiring to get to 13, they're not really in the conversation anymore. You've got Riot at 35, right? That's a kind of a clear 4th place. But some of these companies like BTDR and Hive, Hive has plans to get to 25. In fact, let's just sidetrack for a second because they just announced Hive Digital Technologies exceeds 12 exahash. So they have now doubled their exahash. And they plan on doubling it again by the end of the year. So Hive is in high growth mode. And I will tell you guys, I want to pull up the Hive chart because this is the stock I bought this week, even though I thought I wasn't going to buy anything. But here's what happened. I go to the 1 hour. This was the open yesterday. This candle right here. And it got down to 211. After that, it got down to 210. And then I thought it got down to 209, but 210, I guess, was the bottom. When this got down to $2.11, I bought a pretty healthy slice because all the other Bitcoin miners were green. Volume was not unusual. We'll add the volume here. And Hive is a company to me that is the most undervalued. I'm not saying they're the best company. I'm saying I think they're the most undervalued just from a market cap standpoint out of all the Bitcoin miners. They just went from 6 to 12 exahash very quickly, and they're going to get from 12 to 25 if they do what they say they're going to do. But they've turned into a company that does what they say they're going to do. So to me, that's important. So when I saw this massive pullback, I bought in at $2.11 on Wednesday morning. And, you know, you can see we closed at $2.30 here on Friday. We were as high as $2.46. So this just seemed like one of those oddball, no reason on earth, opportunities to buy in. So I did. We'll see how that plays out over time, because again, I think Hive is super undervalued. And I bought my position in this later than most of my other positions that I have. So I didn't mind adding some on what was, it was down over 5%, and it was just bizarre. So I feel like I took advantage of that, and hopefully that'll play out in my favor.
Since April 8th to now, I'm only in 3 stocks. I'm in Hive, Marathon, and CleanSpark. I'm up 65%.
Yeah, and there you go. I mean, that's when I earlier said a vicious run. That's what I'm talking about. It's really those last 3 months, and I don't think it's over. I think that was actually the kickstart of what's to come. These stocks were stalled and delayed, and they were held down deliberately, in my opinion. Obviously, who knows? But I think, at some point we see the institutions buying these companies, and they're going to run, especially the big ones. And the reality is Marathon, Riot, and CleanSpark are the big dogs in this space. And so they're most likely to run. Having said that, there's probably higher risk reward on some of the smaller ones. So, Marathon might double or triple, and maybe a Hive will 5x. But who knows? Any of them could do anything. We don't, right? We're all speculating. But I am speculating that I think there's a lot of room to the upside on several of these stocks.
Come on, buddy.
So we'll go to the chart. I want to look at this week, last week, this month, and last month, just to really drill home what kind of run these stocks have been on. So you're going to see this is this week. So this was not a great weekend, and today was really the day that kind of turned things upside down. Bitcoin was way up, and most of the Bitcoin miners were red. So this week was not even so-so. Marathon was up 8%. That kept pace with Bitcoin. A lot of others were just a little bit in the green or at zero. Core Scientific's an outlier. This was a one-off event. This was to adjust to their sales price for the offer that was put in. We don't know for a fact that that deal will close, but this adjusted them down to what they agreed to sell themselves for. So that was a one-off. But you'll see TerraWolf had a rough week, down 7%, BitDR down 4%. And this is, again, one of the ones I don't have a position in this, but I am interested. Not financial advice. I'm not recommending it, but, one of our members earlier in this stream, let me go find who it was. I believe. Find it, I'll move on. But I know that IREN. I can't find who it was, but thank you to whoever mentioned. I think there's opportunity in BitDR. They do a lot of different things, and it seems like they're gaining momentum. Their stock underperformed this week. So this week, if you just look at this, you would think not very exciting for the Bitcoin miners. But I want to show you one of the reasons this week looks like this. It came off of last week. And last week looked like this. Bitcoin was up 2% last week. CIFR was up 42%. Bitfarms was up 37%. Hive 28%. TeraWolf 25%. BitDR 24%. HUT 24%. IREN 20%. I mean, you're talking about 10xing or 20xing the performance of Bitcoin last week. So they took a pause this week. That made an awful lot of sense to me. That felt like the most predictable outcome of what was going to happen with the Bitcoin miners this week. And it wasn't a disaster. It's not like they tanked. Again, this Core Scientific's a one-off. It has nothing to do with anything other than they got bought. So, you know, everything kind of hung around after this monster. This is one of the best weeks for Bitcoin miners, you know, in a long time. Then I want to go to, this is what happened last month. Okay, so this is now June. Bitcoin is up 3%. You had two underperformers. Again, BitDR, and it's one of the reasons I'm interested in it. It's underperforming. The stock is underperforming. I think the company's performing very well. And Bitfarms. You had Bitcoin up 3% in June. IREN was up 74% against Bitcoin's 3%. So when I talk about a vicious run-up, Core was up 60%. CIFR was up 53%. Riot, which never seems to have a big run. Riot was up 40% in 1 month, and it was a month that Bitcoin was up 3%. So when you've got this happening in June, and now I'm going to show you after this happened, here's what we've done so far in July. Again, Core Scientific being an outlier, that has to do with a deal that was made. Bitcoin's still in last place. Every single Bitcoin miner is either equally or outperforming Bitcoin in the month of July. And that's after they, you know, anywhere, right? This is a 25x on what Bitcoin did. This is a 20x on what Bitcoin did. So to follow the month of June up with the month of July, where you'll see now Bitcoin's now up 10%, but Hive's up 28%. Bitfarms is up 27%. These are two that everybody thought were dogs, that were garbage, that, you know, you should stay away from. And here they are having a great month. CIFR 23%, Marathon 22%, HUT 17%. You see my point. Even following June, right after a month like this, you would expect, hey, maybe we're going to get a breather. But the reality is we did get a little breather this week. But even this month to date, we're still crushing it with the Bitcoin miners. So I think we've turned the corner. That's the point I'm trying to make with these charts. So these are what I look at, you know, one of many charts that we look at that I think paints a good picture for the Bitcoin miners going forward. What do you think, George?
I think it goes by quick. I think the long streams are the ones where it was a disaster during the week, and the fun streams are streams like this. You know?
Yeah, it's nice. It's nice to have some charts that look like this. And again, even though Core Scientific's down 27% in July, remember, it was up 60% in June. So just to keep it in perspective, and this was on speculation of a buyout. So they overshot on the speculation of a buyout. When the offer came in, it was lower than they thought, and you get this one outlier. But other than that, the Bitcoin miners have been on fire the last 2+ months. And yes, we took a little break, particularly today was a little bit disappointing, but I don't think it was unexpected. I feel like it's just where everything is at right now in relationship to each other. So I'm optimistic. I'm optimistic Bitcoin will keep running. I'm optimistic the Bitcoin miners will keep running. We have a long list of stuff that some of which will have to wait till next week, I guess, because, man, so much stuff happens every week inside of Bitcoin. and the Bitcoin miners. I really would like to just find one other thing.
I'm going to go look for a BitBoy, just so you know.
I haven't seen or heard from. Oh wait, I got one for you.
He lives one town over.
Oh, you're like literally gonna go look for him.
I'm gonna go look. That's serious, guys. I'm gonna go look for him.
I just wanted to give everybody an update on old friend to the channel, former CEO of Hut 8, Jamie Leverton. This article came out July 8th this week. Crypto treasury firm Reserve One is going public in a $1 billion SPAC deal. The newly created firm, led by former Hut 8 CEO Jamie Leverton, plans to hold a basket of cryptos, including Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Solana. I won't read this whole article. It goes on to say Bitcoin is basically going to be the backbone of this, but they will be diversified. Jamie is very familiar with the HODL strategy in Bitcoin. So this seems like a great fit for her. I'm glad she found, she also got a position on Riot's board of directors. And now this is her full-time job. So glad to see her land in some good spots, it looks like. That's my update on her.
What time I got to sneak out?
All right. Well, let's just take a final look. We're at 117,600. George, thanks for joining us.
Tom,
any last words, thoughts?
I think next week's going to be better.
All right. You heard it from George. Let's go with that. Everybody have a fantastic weekend. Thank you so much for joining us and for supporting the channel. And to the members, we will see you Tuesday after the market closes. Everybody else, we're here every Friday. Hope to see you then.
See you guys.